Hello everyone, this is Bob and Threadbare, and welcome back to Sleeping Dogs. Well, it's time for that foreshadowing to pay off, because now I am in a tiny car and I am going to that main mission. I've also got a tiny outfit.
Wei, 歡迎，kind of you to join me. Care for some tea? 嚟，飲啲茶。
Thank you.
Tu Jin Sao seems to be getting very comfortable in his new position as temporary chairman. Too comfortable. I hear that he is already planning to make it permanent, should Uncle Po not recover.
Big Smiley will kill him before he'll let that happen.
Indeed. And that would allow Lee to take over the Sun On Yi himself.
But that can't happen.
No, it cannot. Tu Jin must go. 但係 he must not be removed by force. He must step down on his own, after which there will be an election.
Why would he step down?
Tu Jin likes heroin. So far, he has managed to control his habit. 但係 anyone who indulges as he does lives permanently on the brink of an abyss. Nah, I've arranged for the quality of his supply to improve, and now you will give him a nudge. Over the edge.
Okay. How?
He is an immensely superstitious man. 好迷信㗎, obsessed with feng shui. He cannot bear to have the slightest thing out of place for fear of the misfortune it will bring.
And you want me to...
Make sure his luck turns bad. Very bad.
I like your style. I will.
Hey, what's your problem, kid? Mrs. Jiang want you to talk to me.
Hey, you broken noses guy?
Mrs. Jiang said you were gonna do some home decoration.
Meet Old Salty Crab.
She told me to tag along, give you feng shui advice. Feng shui, a lot of people live by it. Feng shui is huge in Hong Kong.
You believe that?
Yeah. I've been spending a lot of time reading about ghosts and the supernatural. Want to make sure nobody I kill can hurt me. You know what I mean?
Kinda, yeah. Also, why does he pronounce it like that? Is the actor native Mandarin speaker? Because Broken Nose pronounced it feng shui.
Goodbye, Mr. Chow. Have a nice day. Right on schedule. Usually goes gambling at this time. Tu Chin loses money fast. We better hurry up. How we get into that gate?
We'll find a way in. Come on.
Okay. Wait. You think we can get over the wall with the neighbors?
Yeah, hello? Who's this?
We got a delivery for you?
Really? My husband didn't tell me. He better not have ordered something stupid from the internet again.
You got all kinds of skills, don't you, kid? Reminds me of myself when I was your age. Less salty. I bet you're smarter, but probably not enough.
Fun fact, Old Salty Crab has the same voice actor as Big Smile Lee.
I pulled a muscle. Ew. I didn't even know I had a muscle there. It hurts like hell. Maybe I'll get a massage after this.
Hey, don't be creepy.
What? You never heard of a groin massage? Like a real one, not a sex one. Happens all the time. Just ask any professional athlete.
Alright, looks like there's a guard down here, so I want to fast talk him and get the points.
Hey, who are you?
I live in the tower. The front door's busted again.
Yeah, just hurry up.
Nope, nothing in here. But hey, I can finally access the collectibles up in this area. I haven't been able to say anything yet because of how talky this episode is, but this is the Yakuza outfit. It lowers the rate that heat increases somehow.
So, how's business?
To be honest, son, yeah? Pretty damn shitty.
Really? What happened?
I'm taking a break from the import-export gig.
How come?
Yeah, something went wrong. I don't really want to talk about it.
Alright, suit yourself.
Gotta be careful around here. There's a lot of talking cues. Don't want to miss any dialogue.
What the hell do you think you're doing?
The boss's dog got out. We don't find it before he comes back, and heads will roll.
Oh, shit. I haven't seen it.
There's nothing inside the shack here, because the lockbox is behind it. Last lockbox in the game. Oh, another tiny car. Yep, Old Salty Crab. That's the man's name. Oh yeah. But before I actually go up there, I saw that there's another guard.
What are you doing here?
Delivering Two Chin's new package. You want to tell him you turned us away?
Oh, sorry, sir. Carry on.
Come on, Wei. You've only got room for one package in that outfit.
How we get into that gate?
Wait here. I'll open the gate from the inside.
Fucking tell me to wait here.
Apparently I can't just jump across. But I can jump back up to get to the last security camera of the game. Huh. Well, there are only 3 numbers they could be now. Oh, for crying out loud. Oh. I guess that kind of makes up for it. All 4 at once like that.
Back here. Wow, you're pretty and talented.
What?
I said you're pretty talented.
Oh, okay, sure. You too, Salty.
Well, he does have his assets on display in this outfit. Oh joy, this again.
You want me to kick the door down?
Nah, you only do that once per mission.
Hurry up, kid. I think I see a couple. Wow, silently. Look at this place. Man, if I were him, I'd spend my money differently.
Alright, Salty. You're the expert. What are we doing?
I tell you, huh? We're fucking with his stuff to make it seem like there's ghosts that don't like him.
What about those vases?
Good idea. Maybe just leave 4. 4 is an unlucky number because the word sounds the same as death in Chinese.
I know 4 is bad, but shouldn't we... There's some pretty unoriginal ghosts.
Yeah, well, luckily we're trying to scare an unoriginal guy. And that's just kind of weird. I broke that, but it didn't count. Yeah, it's kind of funny that he has to tell Wei that 4 is death in Chinese.
Spell bad one, huh? Okay, let's keep going.
That's the kind of thing everybody in the room would know.
It's supposed to bring good luck. If it disappears, well, that's not good luck.
He really buys into this hocus pocus shit?
You can't blame the guy. Two Chin's got more money than taste.
Hey, you literally have to get one of these jade statues
Wait. See that clock?
in the process of the game.
4:44 and unplug it. That'll freak him out. 4:44.
Yeah, this could work.
Why is it on a hinge?
Oh, yeah. His feng shui is fucked now. Turn the piano so it faces the wrong way. I help, but I pull my grand climbing over the wall. Hi la, my crotch isn't what it used to be.
Come on, man. Don't lift with your back.
Got him up. I think we're done here. Old Two Chin's gonna freak. Either he thinks Ghost fucking with him, or he knows his home is insecure. Hey, somebody coming. We better go.
Mr. Chow, is that you? Anybody in there?
What do we do?
Just hide. Stay calm.
Yeah. Nothing to do here but watch the guard mess around and finally get bored and leave. And hear some other guy screaming in the background, apparently.
They're gone. Come on.
Keiichi, Two Chin loses money fast. We better hurry up.
All right.
Ayya, deal! There's a camera.
Looks like we're on camera.
Oh, God, Tana. I hate how everyone got security cameras everywhere.
I already took care of that thing.
Oh, shit, I think he's home. Get down.
Those cards must have been rigged. I never had a game like that before. Never. 我從來未試過咁㗎. Why didn't you stop me? It's your job to protect me, isn't it? Fucking rodents, all of you. What is this? 你們搞撚錯啊? Look at this. How can you let this happen? It's all gone to shit. Gone to shit.
What do you want us to do, boss?
Get out. Get out. I need to think. 出去啊!
Wait, the guard left their car. Let's check it.
All right. Done our mischief. Time to get out of here.
Wait. Let's take the guard's car. Ah, damn. I always wanted to get myself one of these.
One of these? Really?
Ah, yeah, okay, bad idea.
You're a strange guy, old salty crab.
Thanks. That means a lot to me.
Hey, I have a delivery here. The golden coin. Hurry up. I've been waiting for you for hours.
Why does the delivery man have a giant van?
Nice work, kid. You got your salty style. I comes in. See you later, kid.
Old salty style.
Well, I mean, why does a food delivery guy have a giant-ass van? So yeah, fun. Something different.
Hello,
Wei,
Miss Chang. How are you?
Uncle Po. He's dead. We're making arrangements for the funeral.
Things could get,
Complicated. Yes. I'll be in touch.
of course. Whatever you need.
Well, shit. But, you know, we're not going to the funeral straight away. Like she said, there's some arrangements that need to be made first. And as you can see, there's a bunch of favors that just popped up. Plus, you know, I got this jade statue. So I'm going to go, deliver it.
I found one of your statues.
Ox, you have done well. Must have been hard to fit in the States, moving at that age.
Yeah, it takes a while. Eventually, you kind of become a different person.
I think a lot of people do that, even if they don't move to another culture. Seems to me that the trick is to remember always who you are, and maybe what it is that you're doing. Be in a culture without being of it. What would you like to learn?
Why, how relevant that is. Only one thing I can spend it on right now. Because that last thing requires me to finish both branches.
I'm ashamed to call myself your teacher. Your failure is truly breathtaking.
Okay, now it's noticing that I'm doing this. Yeah, and once again you can tell that this is sort of an acting cheat.
I'm embarrassed for you.
Because he is clearly bending that arm along the elbow. And I would say that the leg breaker is still more useful overall, because it puts them into the... for some reason it wouldn't let me do the arm break just then. But yeah, the leg breaker puts them in that dizzy mode, which you can exploit. The arm breaker just knocks them down, and that's less useful. Alright, yeah, I'm gonna go change my outfit. And now that I've done so, it's time to do some more favors. As Agent 47. Hey, this outfit comes with a gun too, by the way. I'm just sitting there admiring it. But yeah, silenced silver baller. Of course, the confusing part here is that the silenced pistol still has that echoing report.
Wait, I need you to come pick me up. I programmed the destination into your GPS.
Alright. Yeah, and by the way, this thing is crazy fast now that it's got the speed upgrade. And it's also got the ramming upgrade, so I don't have to care about hitting stuff. This thing will just keep on going no matter what I hit, pretty much. So long as it's from the front, at least. And that's good, because I am being sloppy as hell today. Oh, but we're almost here.
Wait! These bastards have kidnapped me! Be careful! I'm in the trunk!
Huh.
Alright, you bastards, come and get it! My gun's bigger than yours, little punk!
Alright, but obviously I can't shoot at the thing that Dr. Tang is in.
Oh, you wanna play that way? Okay, fine!
We gotta take out these escorts here.
Careful!
And I don't think I'm supposed to jump out to do the action hijack here.
How's your shirt, punk?
Jesus!
And it's at about this point that I begin to realize, don't I have an EMP on this thing? Shouldn't I be using that?
Hiya!
Is that your grandmother's car? Learn to drive, punk guy!
Ah, there we go. Now I've remembered it.
Help!
was careful. Went for headshots. And now I've gotten the ramming upgrade again? Huh. Was I not supposed to get that after the first mission? Because the first mission would have just unlocked the car itself. Also, paint job is black now. Less interesting.
You okay?
There's something wrong with my motorcycle. I don't know what it is. I was driving along, and I hear this thunk sound. I think maybe something fell off or something. But when I look at it, I don't see anything wrong. Man, I don't know anything about motorcycles. Do you think you could have a look?
Yeah, you know what this is at this point. Nobody's around either corner, and yet... Son of a bitch. Yeah, I think the green outfit isn't gone forever. Oh. Huh. I think the car was overkill this time. Like this was sort of a joke mission. Because that guy broke his leg when he jumped off that ledge. He wasn't going anywhere. I mean, he's double not going anywhere now because I killed him, but...
Who are you?
Dr. Tang, I build tech for the Sun On Yi. I'm trying out a new tracking device. Can you give me a hand?
What do you need?
I put the tracker on a test package. I need you to see if you can follow it as it flows down the sewers.
The sewers?
Yeah, if it works, we can move drug and guns this way.
Yeah, sure.
No need to carry anything that will get you arrested. You just drop in wherever you are and pick it up where you need it.
Huh. So this is how we would normally be introduced to Dr. Tang, like without the car DLC. And yes, this is basically just a straightforward follow the waypoints thing. The only complicated aspect is the fact that a lot of the waypoints are on pedestrian walkways. Sorry. But you know, the lights never take you through a building or anything like that. It's not that hard or complicated. I am liking this soundtrack. You might have noticed also that you don't really need to keep a pace when you're following these lights. As soon as you reach one, the next one shows up. Like you need to go at a certain speed to keep up with them, but you can set the pace if you are keeping up with them. This is one weird-ass sewer system.
Dr. Tang, I followed the package. The transmitter stopped moving.
Excellent. Thanks, Wei. This show our tech could really work.
The Agent 47 outfit also keeps your heat level from going up. I mean, yeah, of course it does. That's how it works for Hitman. And yeah, I'm not gonna drive over there in this van. I'm gonna drive over there in this coupe. Nice hunter green color. Oh boy, this guy. This is not going to end well, is it?
You're not gonna shoot anyone, are you?
Hell no. Let's go.
What the hell was that?
Yeah. Takes a little too much C4.
No shit. You gonna pull this shit, you gotta learn to drive.
You. The cops are on us.
Oh shit.
Think you can lose him?
Well, it is level 4 heat. This is not going to be easy. We got a nice car, that helps, but, oh dear. Yeah, this is the level where people pretty consistently show up in front of us, already aware of us, and already chasing us down. So, yeah, basically the idea here is the car version of Serpentine. Hey, it worked!
I think you lost him. Hey, you can just let me off anywhere.
Apparently doing sick jumps is another way to reduce heat. Never really had the opportunity to try it, and... well, there's a bright side for you. He does pay well for this job.
Another tracker?
Yes, but this time it's moving fast. I don't want to lose it. Or worse yet, have 18K find it. Can you track it down?
Yeah, sounds good.
And now we're in the microcar. Whoops. Part of the joke of this series of missions is the increasingly absurd cars you need to drive in order to do them. I mean, you start out with a van, that's awkward enough. Now we're in the mini car. I mean, I guess it's maneuverable and there's less chance of me running people over in it. Yeah, this takes you all across the walkways to downtown, including the bridges. Oh. Oh good, they actually get out of the way when I honk my horn. Maybe I'll get some food later. Right now, I've got a tracker to follow, and whoops. Thought I would get more height than I did.
Dr. Tang, I got the transmitter.
Excellent. Thanks, Wei. Don't want our stuff falling into the wrong hands, you know?
Where are the sewer access holes, anyway? Oh, wait, there's a manhole right in front of me. Mystery solved. And yeah, we're still going with this. We're not done with this series of missions yet. And yeah, this one's just across downtown, so I didn't bother cutting this out. Especially because I got a funky beat going here. Don't want you missing out on that. Alright, Dr. Tang, what kind of vehicle do you have for me this time? Of course.
What's the problem?
GPS device routes you away from cops or anyone else who's chasing you. I haven't perfected it though. Can you take it for a spin? Just follow the map it lays out. See if you can stay on the route.
Sure, why not?
You know, to be fair, this is no more absurd than some of the stuff that Agent 47 has done in his own games. Oh, I was going to say something about finally being on the road, but that didn't last long. Whoops. And even the scooter's deadly. So funky. Yeah, I know this is supposed to route me away from cops, but aren't I being a little obvious here?
Dr. Tang, I finished the test. Works fine. But are you sure it'll help me avoid cops?
Once I get their tracking data plugged into it, it should. Thanks, Wei.
Yeah, but at the same time, you're driving a scooter through pedestrian traffic. You're kind of making yourself obvious in other ways. Oh well. That's the end of that. There's just the main mission left. Not much else after that. Today's film comes courtesy of Ms. Chris, who asked for 2003's Oldboy, completely independently of Final Gamer James and Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. Fortunately, this meant I could be nice and efficient by getting the Vengeance Trilogy box set, but that's enough about me. The story about the story. So, I talked about the state of South Korea's film industry, and Park Chan-wook in particular, in my Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance review, but that doesn't mean that this section is going to be short. Oh no. See, while Sympathy was an original story, Oldboy is an adaptation. Specifically, it adapts a Japanese manga of the same name, although the manga's name is 2 words instead of just the one. Now, the thing about the manga industry is that it's generally a lot more liberal than American comics about depictions of sex and violence and mature themes. I talked about some of this before in my review of Hong Kong's The Raid. The Comics Code Authority killed most comic genres outside of newspaper strips and superhero books, but that only happened in America. Other nations got to enjoy adventure and drama and slice-of-life comics, and that's as true in Japan as it is elsewhere. In fact, Japanese comics, or manga, are particularly popular, which may be the result of the immensely popular Astro Boy series. Astro Boy began in 1952, a time when Japan was still rebuilding from the war, and just across the Korean Strait, Americans were fighting the Chinese, and considering dropping some nuclear bombs on them. The nation needed something simple, heroic, and cartoonish, so it's not really surprising that Astro Boy became a huge hit. But now let me skip ahead to Oldboy. Much like in other nations, the main audience of manga and anime have been, and still are, children and adolescents. But there has always been a niche for adults. And when censorship weakened in the 80s and 90s, that niche grew since manga authors could now discuss and depict adult topics directly. In some cases, that just meant throwing in sex and violence, like it's an exploitation movie, but in other cases, you got Oldboy, a manga series that ran from 1996 to 98. Oldboy's author was Tsuchiya Garo, who, died earlier this January. He didn't draw it though. The artist is Minagishi Nobuaki. The manga ran in a weekly magazine called Weekly Manga Action, and the magazine has always targeted a male young adult audience since 1967. Lupin III was one of their first series. They also ran Lone Wolf and Cub, True Getter Robo, and Crayon Shin-chan. In 2003, Park Chan-wook adapted the manga into a feature-length film. He was its director and one of 3 scriptwriters. Now, Oldboy is 8 volumes long, so they had to remove a lot of content. But the changes run even deeper than just cuts. The premise is the same in the movie and the manga, but the twist at the end is considerably crazier in the movie. Which is good, if you ask me, because the twist needs to be crazier than the premise. The twist in the manga is, well, like a wet fart by comparison. But how about I stop explaining and start summarizing the story? The movie begins with our crazy-eyed protagonist, Odesu, telling his life story to a guy he's hanging over the side of a building by his tie. And the guy has a little white dog. What a way to start a movie. We cut back to where it all began, 1988, at a police station. Desu got arrested for being extremely drunk and disorderly, and after we watch some of his antics, his friend Ju Huan comes by and picks him up. Also, it's his daughter Yuan He's birthday, but when the two of them call her, Desu disappears. It looks like he wandered off, but that's not the case. When the credits end, Desu has been locked in a room for 2 months. A tiny door lets a guard give him his meals, but the guard never speaks to him, no matter how much he rants and begs. The room he's stuck in looks like it belongs in a cheap motel, and every night, music plays, and a gas pipes in and knocks him out. This is so guards can come in and cut his hair, clean his room, and take blood samples. Also, he's allowed to have a TV, so he's able to watch a news report about how his captors killed his wife and framed him for the murder. Desu goes completely insane when he finds out, and only avoids dying thanks to his captor's intervention. As Desu settles into his 15-year imprisonment, he calms down and starts to consider things rationally. He writes journals that list everyone he ever wronged, only to realize that the list is far too long for him to guess who his captor is. He starts exercising and punching the wall to get in shape and get ready for his revenge, and he uses a spare steel chopstick he got once to scrape a brick free from the wall. And by year 15, he breaks through the wall and the wall behind it, and it turns out he's halfway up a building in Seoul. But before Desu can finish his escape attempt, a woman comes in and uses hypnosis on him. The next thing he knows, he's in a briefcase on a grass-covered rooftop. He has his journals, he's wearing a designer suit and a nice watch. Oh, and the guy and the dog from the intro are here. Apparently the guy is considering jumping. After Desu gets handsy with him, since this is the first human contact he's had in a decade and a half, the guy leans over the edge and Desu grabs the tie. We've caught up to the present now, but after Desu finishes his story, he wanders off before the suicidal man can respond in kind. He then freaks out in the elevator since he's alone with the first woman he's seen in 15 years, and once he's on the street, he steals a cigarette from a bunch of punks, partly for that first hit of nicotine, and partly to see if his 10 years of solo combat training can do him any good. And as it turns out, the answer is yes. Later that night, a smelly hobo hands Desu a cell phone and a full wallet. So Desu goes to a sushi restaurant, and that's when the phone rings. Desu demands to know who his captor is, and he rattles off a list of likely suspects, but the man on the phone says they're all wrong. He says he's a scholar of Odesu. The reason for the imprisonment will be clear if he remembers the right incident. Then Desu eats a raw octopus, and he abruptly collapses on his plate. When Desu wakes up, he's in the apartment of the woman who served him the octopus, and she's been reading his journals. She goes to the bathroom, and he attacks her, but she gets him to stop by smacking him with the knife she brought in, specifically because she thought this might happen. But in Desu's defense, he's remorseful once he comes back to his senses, and it turns out that the girl, Mido, actually wants him to have sex with her, despite their obvious age gap. She tells him that when she wants it, she'll sing the song his captors always played just before piping in the knockout gas. Desu has Mido pretend to be a journalist so she can ask around and locate Desu's daughter. Apparently, she's now living with a foster family in Stockholm, of all places, and nobody told her that Desu allegedly killed her mom. Seeing that she's at least doing alright, Desu decides to concentrate on getting revenge. Desu and Mido start visiting every Chinese restaurant in town with the words Blue Dragon in the name, which is a lot since the Blue Dragon is one of the 4 mythical beasts. They're doing this because, at one point, Desu found the words Blue Dragon in one of the fried dumplings he ate for 15 years. Could be a clue. But then another clue comes, because it turns out Mido is face-chatting with some anonymous guy online who calls Desu the Count of Monte Cristo and calls himself the Lonely Prince in the High Tower. So Desu decides he can't trust Mido and leaves. On his own, Desu finally finds the right restaurant, Violet Blue Dragon, and he tracks down the delivery guy just as he's about to make another delivery to the secret prison on floor 8.5. And as Vivaldi's Winter Movement 1 plays in the background, Desu extracts 15 teeth from the man who imprisoned him and apparently dozens of others. He does this mostly for revenge, but he also gets the guy to tell him about the tape recordings that the guy made of his conversations with the man who paid for Desu's imprisonment. When Desu leaves the office, the corridor is full of guards, and what follows is a single-take fight scene that took 3 days to film. Nobody really uses any formal martial arts, and the movie makes a point of using realistic wimpy slapping sounds for the punches, but the scene is still impressive. Desu got messed up pretty bad in the fight, and he collapses in the street. But a man immediately springs to help him, sends him to an apartment instead of a hospital, and knows Desu's name. And when Desu wakes up, turns out Mido took care of him again. He then listens to the tape, but the only motive his captor gives is Odesu talks too much. Desu then visits an internet cafe, because that's where his old friend Ju Huan works. After a tearful reunion, the two start searching online, and in a part I didn't quite parse since it was written in Korean, Desu is contacted by a user called Evergreen who mentions that the murder charge against Desu just got dropped. And this somehow implicates Mido because in the next scene Desu is interrogating her while she's tied up on her bed. But before that gets too creepy, Ju Huan calls because he tracked down Evergreen's address. Turns out, it's the apartment across the alley from Mido's place. When Desu gets there, Evergreen and his bodyguard are waiting for him. Evergreen proposes a deal. If Desu can figure out who he is and why he's doing this, Evergreen will kill himself, and not kill Mido. Desu considers killing him right there and then, but Evergreen appeals to his curiosity. In the process, he explains that he has a pacemaker with a special button that will let him kill himself in an instant. Oh, and something is happening over in Mido's apartment. When Desu gets back, the prison guy, Mr. Park, and his gang ambush him. Park has got some gold teeth to replace the ones that Desu took, and he plans to return the favor. Vivaldi is even playing again. But before Daesu can pull out his concealed knife, Evergreen's bodyguard shows up with a suitcase full of cash so that Park will leave the two alone. So Park leaves, but not before Daesu promises to cut off his hand for touching Mido. Daesu and Mido leave everything and drive off in a rental car. During the drive, Mido sings the song, and so when they get to a hotel, Daesu takes her first time, and a few more times after that. But once they go to sleep, Evergreen pumps in the knockout gas, touches Mido for a bit, and leaves behind a purple present with Park's severed hand in it. Daesu goes straight to an electronics shop and asks them, in writing, to find and destroy the many, many bugs Evergreen put in Daesu's clothes and Mido's apartment. And while they're doing that, the two head back to Juhwan's internet cafe and Google Evergreen, until the Sagnock High School alumni page shows up. The alumni are called Evergreen Oldboys, and that's the title drop, by the way. Turns out, Sagnock is a Catholic high school where Daesu and Juhwan went as kids, and it reminded them of a fellow alumnus named Lee Woo-jin. His sister, Lee Soo-ah, was in the same year as them, and threw herself off a dam. When Juhwan hears about this over the phone, he starts talking about how Soo-ah was a total slut before she died, which turns out to be a bad idea on his part, since Woo-jin is eavesdropping at the cafe, and he murders Juhwan with a broken CD while he's still on the phone. Which confirms that Woo-jin is Evergreen, if nothing else. Daesu tracks down Mr. Park's dentist and uses their records to contact Park. Now that Park's lost his hand, he's willing to work with Daesu, and they put Mido in one of the Park's prison cells to keep her safe. The next day, Daesu meets with a hairdresser and fellow alumnus who says the rumors about Suo were false, and she had a boyfriend. But after she calls her friend, she says that Daesu, of all people, should know the truth. Then Daesu hears a bell, and it causes a flashback. Turns out he stayed after classes one day and spotted the Lee siblings getting closer than siblings should get. Daesu told Juhwan, Juhwan told everybody else, and so Soo-ah killed herself. Oh, and Woo-jin knows Daesu is responsible because he spotted him at the window. Daesu goes to Woo-jin's building, but he can't figure out the penthouse code, and he has to wait for the man himself to enter the elevator with him. They all head up together, and when two regular guards go after Daesu, he stabs them with a broken toothbrush. At which point the main bodyguard shrugs, starts cleaning up the bodies. Daesu tells Woo-jin that he knows his motive, so Woo-jin starts explaining himself. First off, Daesu wasn't hypnotized to forget the incest thing, he just forgot because he didn't care about it. Daesu then says Woo-jin pushed his sister off that dam, since she got phantom pregnant after hearing a rumor. Or it might have been real pregnant and we have no way of knowing. And while Woo-jin laughs, he doesn't deny it. But he does say that he hypnotized both Daesu and Mido to meet each other and to fall in love, because Mido is Daesu's daughter, which he reveals with a photo album in a purple box. Now that's one way to get revenge. Daesu goes a little crazy after that, but he's no match for Woo-jin's bodyguard. It gets to the point that Woo-jin has to kill his employee to keep him from killing Daesu. He then tells Daesu that Park is still working for him, and he gave Park a new prison in exchange for his hand. But he does let Daesu call Mido and tell her not to open the purple box. After that, Daesu becomes a rambling, sobbing, begging mess. He even cuts off the tip of his tongue in what I can only assume is a nod to Oedipus. So while Daesu may have won Woo-jin's game, and Woo-jin does indeed kill himself soon after, with a gun, since the pacemaker button was a bluff, the reason Woo-jin kills himself is because he got his revenge, and he no longer needs to live with his guilt and grief. And we see, just for the record, that both the Lee siblings were responsible for Suwa's suicide. The last scene of the movie is rather trippy, and it involves Daesu meeting with a hypnotist in a winter forest to erase his memories. And when that's done, Mido shows up and the hypnotist is gone, with only one set of footprints leading away from the chairs. And, as father and daughter, as two lovers watch the sun set over the mountains, the movie ends. The analysis. If Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance is a tragic poem, Oldboy is an aristocrat's joke. For those of you who don't know, The Aristocrats is basically a challenge joke. A family goes to a talent agent with their new act, but it turns out that the act is as tasteless, oversexed, violent, scatological, taboo, sacrilegious, and all the most offensive and insane stuff the comedian can imagine. And what's the act called? The Aristocrats. Oldboy is an absurd film, and that absurdity is completely intentional. The movie is telling the audience a joke. It's straight-faced, horrifying, and black as sin, but it's definitely a joke. You can see it in the cuts, in the beats, and in the way they filmed a minutes-long single-cut action sequence, but all of the action is a bunch of flailing around and slapping noises. You can even see it in the little touches, like how the one time a character tries to tell a joke, he gets interrupted. And honestly, with a premise like this, no other approach could have worked. A man kidnaps his enemy, keeps him in prison for 15 years, plays games with him upon his release, and manipulates him into having sex with his daughter, all for the sake of revenge. And the moment he gets that revenge, he shoots himself in the head. Life over. Congratulations. But that absurdity is what draws us in, makes the movie worth watching. The reason Oldboy is funny isn't schadenfreude. We aren't laughing at the suffering. That would be slapstick comedy. Oldboy is dark comedy, and dark comedy is all about absurdism. A dark joke reminds you that terrible things and terrible people exist, and it makes you laugh in spite of that reminder. Laughing at terrible things makes no sense. It is absurd, and so is the world, and so are we for laughing. So that's why everything is completely over the top. Brother-sister incest, followed by father-daughter incest. 15 years spent in a secret prison in downtown Seoul on a floor between floors. Daesu's first contact with another person is a suicidal man and his fluffy little puppy. Hypnosis that doesn't work anything like real hypnosis. A scene of hallucinatory ants erupting from Daesu's skin, followed up by a scene of Mido meeting a giant ant on the subway. And what do you call it? The Aristocrats. It's all too crazy to be real, but the people in the story treat everything so seriously that we can't help but be drawn in. I mean, after all, reality is too crazy to be real. So why not just take a moment to laugh at how absurd it all is? Thanks for joining me again for today's film review, and I hope I'll see you next time for a colorful Jet Li movie about the birth of the Chinese Empire.